Hi, I'm Johnny Incarnato, and welcome to The Shift, where we capture how people have personally, professionally, and spiritually made the shift to happy, prosperous lives. I have our esteemed guests today, Peg and Dan Hoover. And Dan is a recovered corporate hustle machine turned soulful human focused on living his best life. After years of spending his days climbing the corporate ladder, he realized his ladder was leaning against the wrong building. Every year was a little harder and a little less fulfilling. After leaving his corporate sales leadership position, Dan started his own software business. And that proved to be even more challenging. Lesson learned let him focus on one part that brought him joy, coach, and mentoring others. He now lives his best life called the vacation life, doing what he can when he wants and however he wants. His mindset life coaching business has helped clients that were in his position 10 years previous. He discovered that life is too short to waste by living by default, instead by living by design. His beautiful wife, Peggy, is on with us as well. She works with ambitious women to help them create their dream lives through the power of mindset and manifestation, without hustle and grind, and with more joy, ease, and grace. Peggy is a transformational coach and a Bob Proctor consultant. She has taught many life-changing techniques to a wide variety of individuals ranging from CEOs, physicians, to her grandchildren. Besides helping her clients achieve quantum leaps, Peggy has a passion for skiing, biking, golfing, and fly fishing. Most of all, she loves spending time with her husband, Dan, their children, and their grandchildren. Dan and Peggy?
Hello.
How are you? Thank you for that nice intro, Johnny.
Absolutely.
Today we want to tell you a little bit about our experiences together.
Sure.
And, you know, the way I would describe it is we had kind of the ideal life. I'm talking about maybe 6-7 years ago, back in 2013, 2014. Mm-hmm. By all outward appearances, we were, some people call us a power couple.
I would say you're definitely a power couple. There's no question. So I won't let you guys gloat about that. I'll gloat for you. Is that fair?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, fair enough.
Okay. So there was based on your backgrounds and things, and as we've talked kind of previous to this, there's been a lot of shifts that have occurred in your lives. And it was funny, we had a conversation, and we'll put this out there to the audience. We were talking about having our shifts in individual, but you all had spoken about how your shift actually had occurred when it was the two of you together first, and then you had everything happen after individually. So, we're gonna definitely paint the picture, and I wanted to kind of open the door and let everybody know who you guys are, but you guys have the floor if you want to kind of tell us a little bit about your together and how that worked, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so as I was saying, we had a good life. Well, we had money, we lived in a beautiful home, we had healthy children for the most part, and things were going pretty well. And then, life has its ups and downs, right?
That's so true.
We had a little downside that I would say it cascaded down. Would you say that, Peggy? I mean, we had a series of events that just seemed to pile on top of each other, one after another. We made a couple of investments that went south. You mentioned in my intro that I started my own software business.
Yes.
It was a pretty big investment of time and energy and money, and sure, it wasn't going well. I was being sued over the name I was used on the company, threatened for a lawsuit.
Oh, geez.
We had a child who had really struggled with mental illness. We had some with other illnesses, and it was just like one thing after another.
And it happens that way.
You know how sometimes it just piles on. So by all outward appearances, we were okay because we were known as problem solvers, able to handle everything. But it really wasn't going that way. It really wasn't.
Inexplicably, these things happen. They build upon another, and you wonder, and you're like, why me? You feel like Job, You're like, why am I getting hit with all of these things? That's my first inclination as you guys are talking. And And then, you start to realize certain things. And I think that's kind of what you guys are going towards. So I'll let you guys paint the visuals for our audience to see.
Yeah, so here's what happened. It kind of crescendoed. And like I said, we're problem solvers. So we would always just say, we'll take it in stride and we'll figure it out. But for me, it reached a breaking point. I was in the kitchen of our home. Peggy was on the couch sobbing, almost in a fetal position, just trying to cope with all that was going on. And for me, I could feel it well up inside of me, the anger, the frustration. And we weren't used to having, I'll say, failure. We weren't used to having that level of problems in our life. And it just built up and I exploded. And I slammed my fist right on the table. I think I almost broke the table or my hand. I said, this is fucking over. No more problems. Nothing. Never again. It's over. And in that moment, it was a shift.
So
in that moment,
this is when the shift occurred.
This is when the shift occurred. There was like an energy flash. There was a shift in the energy, and we both could feel it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Peggy sat up straight. You tell them how you felt, Peggy.
It was just like a lightning bolt, through the house. And Dan rarely uses expletives. So when I heard him say that, I thought, what is happening? And I snapped out of it and kind of sat up. But it was really cool, Johnny. I felt this energy shift. I really did. I felt like something had changed, like there had been a demand placed, to whom I have no idea. But, he had gotten to the breaking point. But it wasn't just a complaint. It was like, something is going to change. It had this declarative power, and it was that. It was so powerful, and nothing materially had changed. All the, my kids that were still struggling, and my ex-husband, and, all the things that were happening were still the same as they had been 90 seconds before. But I knew it was like the earth tilted on its axis, it was like, okay, something's happening.
I felt the same thing. I felt like something is different. We both felt better. Was
it quietness? What was it? Was it sound? Was there music? What was it for you guys? If you could paint that picture.
For me, it was a stillness. Whereas before, I could almost feel this negative cloud in our home. And then it went still after I slammed my fist down, and it got quiet, and we both kind of looked at each other in a little bit of amazement. Not because it was anything in particular I did, it was just we felt the whole energy change in the room. Now, this was before we really studied mindset to know what we know today. But what I did, now that it's over, I know that I sent a command out to the universe. You
consented at that moment. You consented to the new life that you desired. You were done with the old. And it was, we know that there's only two ways to change things. Is you have to have either an emotional impact, which this was, or you had to have, the constant repetition. And we know these things now. You guys didn't know that then. That's so powerful.
Didn't know that then. And the truth is, I think we opened a bottle of wine, had a glass of wine, just relaxed the rest of the night. Right. The next day we got up and nothing had changed. To Peggy's point, the next day nothing changed, but we felt better. It was okay. And I think the next day we woke up and felt better. And it was on the third day, my phone rang. And I could tell it was an international number. And I answered it. And it was a gentleman calling from London. He had been perusing the internet looking for a software solution to help his wife. My solution was a mobile app designed to help network marketers. And it was his fiance. She was about to enter into the network marketing business. He knew something about it. And he said, I've looked at your solution. It's the best one I've ever seen. Can you tell me about it? So then I did a demonstration for him on a Zoom call, much like this. And we talked, and he loved the solution. And he loved it so much that he actually became an affiliate and started to sell my software solution in Europe.
Incredible.
So things started to turn around, but we both were still pretty focused on the issues at hand.
Of course.
And I felt a little bit badly. I'd worked with him for 3 months, and I never asked him who he was or what he did. I just didn't. I was so focused on myself. I'm not proud of that, but 3 months came along. I said, "Hey, Peter, I don't know much about you." He said, "Oh, you don't know who I am?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, my name is, I'm Peter Sage. I'm fairly well known in Europe." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. How are you known?" And he said, "Well, I'm a personal development guy, and I studied under Tony Robbins, and I was one of his top coaches. And I've been coaching on my own for several years in personal development." I said, "Wow, how about that?" And so I looked him up then. Finally, I had the wherewithal to do a Google search and figure out who this guy was. And
Finally.
he was a real deal. Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
So, about a week later, he called me again and he said, "Hey, I'd like you and your team to come to London and come to a weekend class I'm holding called the Millionaire Business School." And I looked at the webpage and I thought, that looks interesting. My team wasn't able to go. We were living in Boston, and it was a flight across to London. But Peggy and I talked about it, and we decided to go. We thought it was about business, and it would help me learn how my business could be better. And
Little did you know.
Millionaire in it. Yeah, kind of like that. So we get there, and the first session, it's all about mindset. And I look at the agenda, the whole first day and the first half of the second day, all about mindset. And we are like sponges on it, really soaking it up. And he invited us to go to lunch with him and with a number of other people. There are probably 15 people in the room. And
Sure.
he would explain his year-long Master Circle program. And we went to that, and Peggy had a pretty positive reaction to that. I'll let her tell you what that was about. How'd you feel about that lunch?
Well, and I love that we're talking about, how we experienced this first shift. I mean, so many, of course, we've been married for 10 years now, so we're still newlyweds, but
Love that. I love that, though. You guys are amazing.
Newlywed.
But we got to this, and I'd been studying personal development and human achievement in a variety of forms for a very long time. So I just loved this material, and so what he was teaching was so interesting to me. And then we went to this lunch, and he said, he was talking about things like the quantum field, and being able to have your thoughts turn to things. And I thought, oh my God, if that's true, I need to learn about that. So I don't know that we even knew what the price was at that time. I think
we knew.
We knew.
Were you guys really skeptical of quantum field and all these other things? Had you heard these etherical terms before, or was this just brand new knowledge to you guys?
I mean,
It wasn't brandy new. It was presented in a very good way,
Yeah.
but we were somewhat familiar with it.
Okay.
But we were not used to investing the amount of money he was asking us to spend a year with him.
particularly given our financial situation. So, I looked at Dan when we left that morning, that lunch, and I said, we have to do this. We have got to do this, and I'm the one in the relationship who has the let's jump and sprout wings, personality. And Dan has, I'd be on the sidewalk in my fancy shoes and my handbags, and living outside. And Dan, is the one who files our taxes and, tracks the cash flow. So he said to me,
I said to her, clearly you have no idea of our cash position or our cash flow. And she basically said, I don't care. We're going to do it. We're going to figure out how to do it.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's what I did. So tell him what we did.
So
together
we talked to Peter about it. His name is Peter Sage. We talked to him about our financial situation and our desire to do his program. It was year-long, and it included 4 bucket list trips and one-on-one coaching with him. This was in September.
Right.
And it started January 1st. So he said, look, Dan and Peggy, I'll help you manifest the money.
Wait a minute.
And I
So
said,
he's going to help you
okay.
manifest money to go on this trip. What?
Yeah, well,
How much was
this deal?
Yeah.
It was 140 grand, 140,000
Wow.
for the two of us for the
Okay.
year.
Okay.
And so that's why, I kind of was shrinking a little bit, and Peggy was saying, "Let's go!" And I was like,
No more handbags this year.
we're gonna go right into the poorhouse. So anyway, after to make a long story short, this kind of leads up to my personal shift.
Really? So talk
but-
about when your shift occurred.
Well, here's what happened. Is Peter said, "I'll help you manifest the money," and I said, "Okay, talk to me about that." And he explained the process to me, and I was like, fairly new in the manifestation game. I wouldn't say skeptical was the word I would have, but I would say I was cautiously optimistic. And then he sensed that, and he said, "Look, if this is going to work, you got to be all in. You got to believe it." And I said, "Well, okay. What do I do?" So I actually wrote this, and he said it was good, but I've got a piece of paper here that explains this story.
Okay.
But I wrote out this few sentences I'm going to read to you, and then Peggy and I both read them every morning starting September 10th. Okay. And it says, Master Circle for Peggy and Dan. Our desired outcome is full participation in this opportunity to transform our lives for the better. We feel aligned with its purpose and intend to experience all it provides. But whatever happens, it's okay. We do not care how it comes together, but we believe it will. We will plan and act as if we are Master Circle members and receiving the benefits each day. Events leading up to the desired outcome, good and bad, will be embraced. It's about living the journey. We cannot wait to see what happens. So every morning, 5 a.m., I would get in a meditative state, and I would read that out loud. And Peggy did it sometime. I wasn't with her. I don't know exactly when she did, but she read it too. And that was in September. And from September through the end of the year, Peter had agreed. We gave him a deposit. I think we gave him 20 grand or 25 grand. And he agreed to give us one-on-one coaching. But the balance that we owed was $107,000 after our deposit. So I'm reading this every day. And then on December 10th, we got a check in the mail, which you can't see very well, but it's for $106,625.
What? Wow.
$75 short of the goal. It came from a guy who was managing an investment fund that Peggy and her ex-husband invested in 20 years earlier, and she took it in her separation agreement. And no one had ever seen a dime from this guy prior to this check showing up.
Oh my gosh.
What?
That's incredible. Literally incredible. Did you guys, was that how did you feel? What were you doing? Like, can you explain how that manifested? What was changing in you guys?
I will call that a delicious moment for me. Because it was the first, I knew about manifestation, I knew about deliberate creation, but this was the first time I was consciously aware that I did it. Through my thoughts, through my energy, I made this happen. So talk about shifts. That was my personal shift. From that moment on, I was on board. I said, as my teenage kids would say, I would say, this shit is legit. So I made a copy of my statement and the check, and I sent it to Peter Sage, and he said, which we say all the time now, he said, always amazed, never surprised.
Always amazed, never surprised. I love that.
Because he knew it was going to happen. But until that moment,
Right. We had no idea.
I wasn't fully on board, but that was a shift in my awareness about the possibilities of the power of the mind. And it was exciting. You asked, how do I feel? I was on cloud nine. I called Peggy and told her, and I think she pulled over.
Well, you said to me, I was driving my car with my daughter. She was probably 10 at the time. And you have young kids, sports and after school things. And he said, are you driving your car right now? And I said, yes. He said, pull over. He said, "You want me to crash my car?" And honestly, I would have. And he said, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, oh my God, what now?
Oh no, like, yeah, cover my face. No.
And you know what was so beautiful? He said, I have a check in my hand that came wrapped in a white piece of paper in an envelope from Andy Sachs, and it's for almost exactly what we owe Pete, for the Masters, the Master Circle. And I just burst into tears because Pete had always told us, and he had been so graciously coaching us through that. And I think he even said, look, if this doesn't work out, I'll give you your deposit back or whatever. But he had coached us for 3 months since September. So September, October, November. And so many of the things that he had coached us on had just had a huge impact on our lives. And it was all in alignment with what we are talking about here today, right? Like how to really work with the metaphysical and how to use your mind and your spirit and engage with the higher powers. And I just burst into tears. I honestly, part of me couldn't believe it. And part of me fully expected it because we had gotten so into the belief of it happening. By reading that, it was like, of course this is going to happen. We have no idea how it's going to happen. If we could have figured it out, we would have written the check, earlier.
Right.
But it was this feeling of elation that, what? I finally understood after seeking higher education, going to therapy, having Reiki done, all of which is great. But I finally felt like I was starting to understand how this all really worked and how to work it in a beautiful way to make our lives much happier, more serene, more fulfilled.
Yeah.
Really.
So let me ask you guys this. You mentioned, Pete, and you mentioned a few things that you had learned over those 3 months. I want to ask you on the fly, what things pop up in your mind that somebody could take home and begin to start working with to begin to manifest for themselves?
Well, he one of the very first things he taught us is that your outer world follows your inner world. Your internal thoughts are what determine your circumstances. So
Cause and effect.
He taught us that what we focus our mind and our thoughts on expands. So when we were having all those problems, before I slammed my fist on the table, every time we focused on one of those problems, it attracted another problem. So we were focusing on lack, children with illness. We were focusing on debt. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wow.
And he taught us to shift our thinking on what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we wanted to go to the Master Circle. We wanted to learn how to have a better life. We wanted to associate with like-minded people. Because we focused on that, it made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could go back and, if somebody's listening to this, I just am feeling like they want a better life or something, they've had a particular area of life that they've really been struggling with. It could be your health, it could be your relationships, it could be money, it could be a business, it could be, anything. We fancied ourselves to be highly educated people, which we are. Dan has an advanced degree. I've gone to an Ivy League school and taught at one. And we were really fixed on problem solving. That's the way we were raised as good Midwesterners. Right. So we were going to therapy and talking about the problems all the time and constantly searching for solutions, which, right? Like
you were going outside to try to do, because that's what you were taught. Yeah. You were going outside to pull anything in that would help the inside, but the inside wasn't mended. And now you've made the decision, and he was teaching you the things to be able to understand that your thoughts are so powerful that you don't need all this other influence. It begins in where you are. You start here, and you start making the decision. You start remembering, start thinking about the things that you want in your life, and those begin to come into being.
No, 100%.
Exactly.
And I was never, look, my folks are great people, well intended, but they just weren't aware of this,
Yeah.
right? And even in the higher education I pursued, nobody was talking about this. Focus, like you were saying, Johnny, focus only on what you want.
Yes.
And that sounds so simple, and it is simple on the face of it. But if you've been trained for years and years and years to problem solve, to focus on the problem, and it's a particularly painful thing for you, it can be hard to train your attention and your thoughts in the direction of what is wanted. And that was really, Peter was really the first person who said to us, your mind has the power to completely create your reality. Forget about what's been manifested in the past. That's completely old news, and it's okay. Don't blame yourself for that. It's nobody's at fault. Have compassion for yourself, but just start to really think about, what would you love, and stay in that fantasy. And boy, that for us, and that whole next year that we worked with him, that was really. Boy, we can tell you, Johnny, we can tell you story after story after story of things. And we didn't even really know what we were doing. We were a little bit, you have young kids. Have you watched the Harry Potter movies?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. My wife is, she's enthralled with Harry Potter. So
Okay.
yeah, all the kids have watched them. And
So when Harry first gets his wand, he's a little bit like out of control with it, right? He's like, pew, 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 like, and that's kind of how we were. But what we realized is it's not, you don't have to be perfect about it. You just have to set the right intention, get into that positive, expectant mood and gratitude. And, he just taught us a handful of really vitally important things. And boy, our lives started to get better and better and better, and we're so eternally grateful that we were introduced to this.
Yeah, so we spent a year, learned a lot, did some trips around the world as a part of that, and it was transformational. We met some wonderful people that we still are friends with today.
Yeah.
And one of those friends actually introduced Peggy to Bob Proctor.
Wow, how incredible!
Right.
How incredible.
Yeah.
So,
God rest his soul. And he transformed, and amazing, that amazing human being who touched so many lives. How was that experience? Was that pretty amazing?
yeah. So, my journey then, continued, and we had a number of wonderful things happen. We used this same method to sell our house that we were living in. This is a picture of one of our favorite rooms in the house we were living in. And so, that was an incredible part of the journey. They told us it was going to take, the experts told us it was going to take a long time to sell. We wouldn't get our price, yada, yada, yada. And we just used the same process over and over again. And of course, our house sold in 30 days.
Ooh.
We found an amazing family that our deal went so well with them, which never happens in real estate, that the gentleman who bought the house took Dan for a full day of golf at this beautiful golf course he belonged to, and then ultimately became a client of Dan's.
So you would say this is the shift, right?
Yes.
And in that moment,
certainly.
you saw the check, you saw the thing from Pete, you saw how this was happening. You said, look, I can do this. The house, we can do this. And then boom, you start making these decisions. So tell me, the check situation took a little while. You were kind of questioning. You were thinking it took, because it didn't, until it actually happened. You don't really see this tangibly. But the moment you see it, then with the house, you're like, okay, we can do this. This is done. This house is already sold. It's already done. We're going to close. Even in this environment, in this market, I'm not going to look at any of those things. I'm going to picture what I want. I'm going to see this house go.
Exactly.
And it went.
Exactly. And we even put language in there to a young family with small kids who are going to, exactly, Johnny, it was exactly the family that bought the house. And we were so overjoyed. We loved the house so much, but it made no sense for us to stay there. My kids were out of the house. My youngest daughter was going to a private school in a different town. We were in the neighborhood for the school system. Anyway, it didn't make any sense. And then we found this incredible house to lease until we moved out here to northern Utah. But then I was struggling and had more in front of me, more shifts in front of me that were really beautiful. And I'll share with you how that worked.
Yeah.
We did this work with Pete for a year, and many things were getting amazingly better. But I still had that little bit of Harry Potter with my first wand. Like, how does this, what's happening? How does this really work? And, there were some interpersonal dynamics with, in my family with my children, and for their, privacy. I won't say much about that, but
Sure.
a couple of my girls were still struggling. And, I was worrying, I'm sort of I was a world-class warrior. And again, I had forgotten, and the principles, and wasn't studying them on a daily basis. That is so key to anybody who's listening. This does work. You just have to pick a path of study, whatever resonates and feels right to you, and stick with it. And Johnny, us, and you know for your own practice how important that is.
You guys are amazing, by the way.
About a year and a half later, I was struggling myself. After we finished that year with Pete, actually it was about a year. It was right after we finished our studies with him. And I knew that I wanted to stay engaged with this, but I just wasn't sure what that was. And in the meantime, I was starting to feel my anxiety gripping, turning to depression. I was self-medicating with alcohol, things. We started to go into this free fall again. And I'm like,
sure.
Oh God, please, not again. And then, just when you ask for, I believe when you ask, it is given, for sure. And so in that moment, of course.
And this was a shift for you.
Yes.
Awesome.
So my shift came when my friend that we had met through Peter said to me, hey, I don't know if you know this guy, but his name is Bob Proctor. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I was doing this meditation that he had put together, right?
Right.
Back when we were living in our old house. And I was like, I remember thinking at the time doing that meditation, I love this guy and I would love to figure out a way to work with him, but I had no idea. And so my friend Joni said, hey, I checked out his consulting program. It's not for me, but I think you'd be interested. And I had a conversation. So all these things were leading up and I was still seeking. But I think the lesson that I learned that I would love to share here is that, if you feel like you want something, it's okay if you don't know exactly what it is or how the path is. It's just keep taking a step at a time, and a step at a time, and a step at a time.
So big.
And so, right?
A step at a time, a micro goal. If you're just 1% better every day, no matter what it is towards where you're going, you're eventually going to get to a place that you're going to look back and go, oh my gosh, we're here?
Right. And I wasn't trained to do that. I was trained to figure out a perfect plan, perfect it 50,000 times,
right,
and then step out and start. And at this point, I think I was so desperate, to get better and to feel better. I quit drinking on January 1st of 2017. I said, you know what? I'm just going to quit drinking for a month because I could feel it was really messing with my mental health and my physical health.
Sure.
And then in March, I believe, I met one of Bob's salespeople, Mario, and I had a conversation with him, and I just said to Dan, again, hey, guess what? I'm going to do another course. He's like, okay. Again, whatever. And so I immediately signed up to become a PGI, Proctor Gallagher consultant. And that was a step in my journey of shifting who I was and my life. And then I I started to do Thinking into Results, which you're familiar with.
Sure.
And Dan was still working in his software business, but I just loved this. I loved it so much. I was reading all the books. I was reading, the guide. I was listening
Incredible
to the audios.
content, isn't it? I literally mind blown when I read it for the first time. There's a lot of things that you get into and you're like, okay, you read a little bit of something, you kind of whatever. This is a life change. This is something that if you get it and you love it and you see it, you become passionate about it. It becomes a part of you. Never in my life have I ever experienced that. And I feel that resonance from you as you're talking. You guys are amazing. And that's something this is a lifestyle change. This is a decision. And then you get into the content and you just want to achieve the greatness within you, whatever that may be.
Right. No, for sure. And, like I said, I mean, going back, I had studied, I did the S training in the 80s, which now is the Landmark Forum. I mean, I just have been kind of a spiritual junkie, to quote Gabby Bernstein. No, I really, because I believe that there is so much more. And I always have believed in human potential and that we can be more, we can do more, we can have more, as the saying goes. And so that was a step, towards liberation and freedom and body, mind, and spirit. And then I'll tell you the day.
Please.
That everything changed.
Tell me the shift.
I mean, it may choke me up, but I got to the point where I actually had a client. like an actual paid client.
Yeah.
Not my two friends whom I love, who I basically comped into the program for free, right? For the cost of the, I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the self-image. And the truth be told, Johnny, I wasn't even really sure. I knew this was working miracles in me, but I wasn't fully sure I could teach it to some. I was a newbie. And, so I got a client, Deirdre, and she was studying Joe Dispenza. And I said, Deirdre, do you really want to know how this works? And she said, yes, I do. Absolutely. I said, okay. And so I said, I'd love to teach this to you. And then she horse traded with me on the price. And so I charged her much more than I had ever charged anybody. And she started coming to my house for weekly, coaching, and she did the program, and she's an excellent student. We're still really close friends. And I'll tell you, the shift really, Johnny, was when I saw her life changing.
Wow. Like you guys went, go ahead. No, go ahead. You're there. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was we took it was so cool what we were producing for us, but the fact that I could help somebody else do this.
You got to see that.
Their life.
You got to see what you learned being brought through and being able to impart that on another human being and teach them and then watch them come alive and awaken. So her life changed significantly, huh?
Her life changed, and wait for it. And this is the nature of this work. And I really feel like we're on the cutting edge. At least we are. I am. But the whole world's consciousness is shifting. And people are understanding there's a new way to be successful. There's a new way to be fulfilled. There's a new way to be in charge of what gets produced in our lives and the good we can do and our growth and our spiritual growth and our, emotional and our physical abundance. And Deirdre was such a good student. She had been in a really challenging marriage, and her ex-husband was really a piece of work. And she had been a really senior person in an executive recruiting company. And she'd just been so beaten down in this marriage. And she had a son who was an only child, and he had been beaten down into a really bad place, not physically, but emotionally.
Sure.
And she wanted, of course, as every parent and every mother, she wanted to get herself upright. She was struggling with anxiety, even though here she is, this highly educated, highly accomplished woman. And she really also wanted to help her son. And I said, look, the best thing you can do is get yourself right energetically. And then all the things that we teach in the thinking into results, I'm so happy and grateful now that, really basically these affirmations. And she did that for a solid year. And here's what happened. And she tried to teach it directly to JJ, but, kids, not so much. But he was struggling in school. Yeah. He was having all these challenges. He was in a really good public school in the Boston area. But somehow her energy shift and her vision of, I'm so happy and grateful now that he's living in his highest and best, shifted something in him just by living in her house with her and seeing her goal cards and her affirmations and the books that she was reading. And he went on to get his grades to such a point his last year in high school that he qualified to go to a private school for a PG year, a postgraduate year. Mm-hmm. And his grades were so good in that private school, which he never would have done, that he got into a highly regarded college. And she, to this day, says all of that was because of doing this work. And so for me, the shift was really helping someone else and knowing the realness of this, not just for myself and for us as a couple and as a family, but knowing that this works for real. It's legit, as my kids would say. And
it's legit. We're going to call it, let's say this is legit. It's legit. It's legit. Okay.
It's legit. And I, at that moment, dedicated the rest of my life to teaching this to women. And it's
I love that.
I mean, where we were, if you'd known us 5 years ago, it was a very different story. And I mean, we've gone on to manifest millions of dollars, homes, properties, all of which is just really the icing on the cake to me. It's about living free in body, mind, and spirit, being aligned with source energy, and then being able to help other people do that, because I think it's so needed in our society and in the world.
It is, and money being a byproduct of doing things a certain way. As long as we understand how to do things a certain way, money comes in abundance. It's all about what we give in exchange. And giving in exchange is not necessarily anything other than our thoughts and what we do, and how are we blessing others and giving to other people, and we are paid in equal proportion in dividends in excess. If we're thankful for that which we have, we'll have more. If we're not thankful, then we lose it. So there's little cues that happen if we get the truth of how it is. Anybody could have the life that they desire if they begin to make the shift and the change. You're talking about changing and the teaching. This is what this entire show is about. It's about helping others to grow into themselves and giving a part of ourselves to others. I'm so thankful you guys were able to come on today and go through this with us.
Thank you.
How can we help you guys with your projects? Is there anything, Peggy, that we can help you with? Is there, if you'd like to kind of talk a little bit about what you do, and if anybody would like to be trained by you, or if there's anything we can do to help you guys, please go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Johnny, for bringing this message to the world, because there's a lot of people out there teaching manifestation and listen, I think everybody's doing the best they can, but what you're doing here for your listeners, for your own family and your community with your philanthropy is such a gift to the universe. So we feel honored to be part of it. And so we're always here to support you. For me, my goal is to help 300 women a year to really internalize this and understand this with the right proper curriculum, of which we have the world's best, with good coaching, which I pride myself. I don't do a lot of good things well, but I'm pretty good at what I do now.
Don't say that. Don't say the other thing, because that's correspondence. You do everything well.
So really what I love to do is help women with this incredible curriculum, a high vibe tribe community, because you and I know, we all know that's how we met, is through community.
Yeah, right.
It's so important to have a like-minded people that we can explore these ideals with. Not that the rest of the world isn't good. And so I'm really looking for women who want to, probably have a good life, but know they want more.
Love that.
You know, or they have areas of their lives that they would love to up level and really make better, or maybe they have a dream in their heart. You know, they have, their lives are really good, but they have this dream that's looking and seeking, you know, looking for and seeking expression. And so I have a Facebook group called The Opulent Entrepreneur. It's on Facebook. My name is Peggy King Hoover. You can catch me on Facebook, Instagram, Peggy Hoover Coaching. Johnny can help you find me, but I'm here to transform women's lives because I love how women impact our children, the world. You know, I love men too, but yeah, that's
you love Dan.
I do love Dan. I manifested Dan when I was getting separated and divorced. I said to the universe out loud, and it made me cry and it scared me. I said, I'm really ready for true love. And I had no idea what I was doing at that point. Absolutely none. I was just, again, Harry Potter with the wand. And I said, it could be a dog, a cat, a man, a woman. I'm really not batting 1,000 here. So whatever you got, God, help me out here. That's when Dan came, no, literally. And that's when Dan came into my life. And it was pretty cool.
Still, it's very cool.
Yeah.
You guys are like two honeymooners. I love it. I love it. It makes me smile. You know, we're so thankful to have you guys on. Is there anything else that we can help you guys with at all? Are we awesome?
No, your audience should know that I'm also a coach.
Yep.
I coach both men and women.
Yep.
And my typical clients are people where I was 10 years ago, in the corporate world, on a treadmill, looking to make a change, looking for more in their life. And recently I started focusing on helping people develop passive income streams. So that's kind of a side to it that I've attracted into my life, and I want to show others how to do it. So we're happy to help, and you can find me at quantumresults.com. That's my website.
I love it.
But thank you, Johnny. Really appreciate it.
No, appreciate you guys too.
Love what you're doing here. Yeah, love what you're doing here. Let us know how we can help.
Awesome. We're gonna cue meditation, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Just think about your lives, everyone. Think about the choices you make in each moment. Think about how they impact what you're doing. You can live your best life. You just have to decide today, or tonight, or tomorrow. But don't wait. Your life is waiting for you. Go. We want to thank our friends, Peggy and Dan Hoover, for coming out today. And also, I want everybody to think about their lives and think about what you've heard today. And remember, you can make a choice and a decision. You just have to do it. And stay tuned for episode 4 next week. Welcome again to The Shift, and everybody have a great day. Thank you.